My name is Harper Morris, and this is the story of the night I stopped begging for a place I never belonged. It's not a fairy tale, not a redemption arc with tearful hugs and apologies. It's messier than that, rawer, and if I'm honest, more real. That night, March 2025, I pulled into the parking lot of a five-star ballroom in Chicago, my fingers gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The building loomed ahead, all twinkling chandeliers and marble floors, a monument to luxury that screamed celebration. Except, for me, it didn't. I stepped out of my car, the cold biting at my bare arms, and smoothed down my navy blue dress. It wasn't fancy, not like the gowns I knew I'd see inside, but it was mine. A quiet armor against whatever waited beyond those doors. I wasn't here to cause a scene, not yet. I'd told myself that 100 times on the drive over. This was Evelyn's day, my little sister's wedding, and I'd accepted long ago that I wasn't the star of this family show. I just didn't expect them to shove that truth in my face so publicly, so cruelly. The air smelled of expensive perfume and frost as I approached the entrance, my heels clicking against the pavement like a countdown. Inside, the ballroom glowed, a sea of floral arrangements towering like silent sentinels, their petals worth more than my rent. Laughter spilled out. Glasses clinked and the hum of a string quartet wove through it all. It was perfect. Too perfect. A wedding planner greeted me at the check-in table, her smile so bright it hurt to look at. "Name?" she chirped, her pen hovering over a clipboard. "Harper Morris," I said, my voice calm, controlled. She flipped through the seating chart, and then something flickered across her face. Pity. I knew that look. Hated that look. "Oh, right, here you are," she said, handing me a small place card. "You're, seated over here." She hesitated, then pointed toward a hallway just outside the grand ballroom. I frowned. "Excuse me?" Her smile tightened, a crack in the facade. "Your table's just outside the main reception area." I glanced at the massive seating chart beside her. Lydia and James Morris, my parents, sat at the front, next to Evelyn and her groom. Evelyn's friends, her groom's cousins, even his co-worker's girlfriend. All inside. My name? Nowhere. A slow burn started in my chest, not even a distant table, not even a corner. They'd shoved me into the hallway like a guest they'd forgotten to uninvite, like I was nothing. I forced a nod, my fingers tightening around the card, its elegant cursive mocking me. Harper Morris, table 12. I wasn't here to ruin anything, I told myself again. But as I stood there, the noise of the celebration buzzing around me, I felt it. A shift. A message etched into that card. You don't matter. And maybe, just maybe, they didn't know me at all if they thought I'd swallow that quietly. From the moment I stepped inside, I felt it. A shift. A message carved into that place card. You don't matter. The ballroom pulsed with life, a glittering cage of laughter and light, but I stood on its edge, my breath shallow, my navy dress suddenly too tight. I clutched the card, its edges digging into my palm, and scanned the room. There they were, Lydia and James Morris, my parents, at the head table, beaming like royalty. Evelyn, my sister, radiant in white, glowed beside them. The bride, everyone adored. I wasn't surprised, not really. I'd spent 28 years as the shadow to her son. But this? This was different. This was public, deliberate, a slap I couldn't ignore. I forced myself forward, weaving through guests in tailored suits and shimmering gowns, their chatter a dull roar in my ears. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice light, though my teeth gritted behind it, "can I talk to you for a second?" Lydia barely glanced at me, her hands fussing over Evelyn's train. "Oh, darling, now's not the time. Can't you see we're busy?" Her tone was airy, dismissive, like I'd asked for a favor instead of an explanation. Evelyn caught my eye, tilted her head, and smirked. That smirk I'd known since we were kids, the one that said she'd won before I'd even started. "It'll only take a second," I pressed, my control slipping. Lydia sighed, annoyed but obliging, and stepped aside. Evelyn didn't move, just watched, her smirk growing. "I just checked my seat," I said, holding up the card. "It's in the hallway." Lydia let out a dismissive hum, her eyes drifting back to Evelyn. "Well, we had to prioritize immediate family at the main tables, Harper." I blinked, the words sinking in like a blade. "Immediate family? I am immediate family." She laughed, a forced airy sound as if I'd said something absurd. "Oh, sweetheart, don't be so dramatic." Evelyn finally spoke, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Did they mess up your seat? Wow, that's unfortunate." Her eyes gleamed with amusement. She knew this wasn't a mistake. I turned back to Lydia. "Mom, you really think it's okay for me to be outside, away from everyone?" She sighed again, bored now. "Harper, don't make a big deal out of this. It's Evelyn's special day. Just be grateful you're here." Grateful? The word lodged in my throat, bitter and unspoken. Grateful for being treated like a second-class guest at my own sister's wedding, discarded, forgotten? I opened my mouth, but James cut in, his voice low, his eyes fixed on his drink. "It's just seating, sweetheart. Let's not ruin the mood." That was it, all he had, a coward's dodge. A new voice broke the silence. "That's an interesting arrangement." I turned. Margaret Evans, Ethan's mother, stood nearby, champagne in hand, her expression unreadable. Evelyn stiffened. Lydia flashed a rehearsed smile. "Oh, Margaret, you know how tricky wedding planning can be." Margaret hummed, unconvinced, her gaze lingering on me just a second too long. I held it, unsure what it meant, but Evelyn steered Lydia away. "Mom, we should check the cake." And I was dismissed, left standing there, the celebration spinning on without me. The sting in my chest spread, not just from this moment, but from years of it. Second choice. Afterthought. Invisible. My mind drifted back, pulling me under before I could stop it. 3 years ago, at 25, I'd been in my old bedroom at my parents' house, dust coating the shelves, my childhood books untouched. I wasn't looking for anything, just killing time while Lydia cooked for Evelyn's visit. Always Evelyn. Then I saw it, a small leather notebook on her nightstand, half hidden, like it mattered. I opened it. Pages of Evelyn, her birthdays, her awards, her favorite foods, every detail Lydia cherished. I flipped faster, searching for me, for anything. Nothing. Not a word, not a thought. I'd stood there, gripping it so hard my hands ached, until Lydia walked in. "Oh, Harper," she'd said, casual. "You've always been independent. I never had to worry about you like I do Evelyn." Like that erased it, like I didn't need to be seen. That was when I knew. I'd always been alone in this family. The present crashed back, Evelyn's laughter slicing through the air. If they wanted to remind me of my place, message received. The isolation wasn't new, but the humiliation cut deeper this time, like an old wound sliced open. I stood at the ballroom's edge, my back pressed against a cold wall, fingers tightening around the hem of my dress. Laughter and music spilled from the reception, a world I was never truly part of. My pulse hammered as I set the place card down on a tray, its cursive Harper Morris staring back like a taunt. If they thought I'd sit quietly in that hallway, they didn't know me at all. Not anymore. I inhaled sharply, pushing off the wall, my mind racing. Then I saw him. Ethan Carter, Evelyn's groom, stood near the bar, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He wasn't drinking it, wasn't smiling like a man who'd just married his dream. His eyes locked on something or someone, with a hesitation I recognized, a crack in the polish. Then they landed on me. He exhaled, long and slow, before pushing off the counter and walking over. "Harper," he said, his voice even, but something simmered beneath it. A question, a doubt. I raised an eyebrow. "Ethan." For a moment, Neither of us spoke. The wedding's noise a distant hum around us, a party moving forward while its heart quietly rotted. He shifted, rolling the glass in his palm, then glanced over his shoulder toward Evelyn, basking in her own glow at the center of the room. When he looked back, his jaw tightened. "Harper," he started, voice lower now. "Can I ask you something, Amy?" I tilted my head. "That depends. Is this polite wedding talk or something else?" He didn't smile, didn't play along. Something inside me shifted, a spark, a warning. He sighed, rubbing his temple like he already regretted this. "Does your sister ever talk about me differently when I'm not around?" There it was, the crack widening, reality peeking through Evelyn's perfect little lie. I considered lying, maybe out of habit, maybe to shield him from the mess I'd lived with for years. But then I remembered her smirk, Lydia's dismissal, that damn notebook with my name erased. I glanced at his whiskey. "You should probably take a sip of that first." He tensed, then lifted the glass and downed it in one go, the burn flashing in his eyes. "Harper," he pressed, "please." I met his gaze, careful but unflinching. "I don't think you know Evelyn as well as you think you do." His jaw tightened again, a flicker of fear, or maybe anger, crossing his face. "She's been acting different," he said, quieter now, edged with frustration. "Controlling. There are things she doesn't want me to see." My stomach twisted. Of course there were. Before I could respond, Margaret appeared, her heels clicking with purpose. She stopped in front of Ethan, her expression unreadable but her eyes sharp, calculating. Evelyn's new mother-in-law, a woman who saw more than she said. She flicked her gaze to me just a second, then settled on Ethan. "Darling," she said smoothly, "I believe you should see this." She held out her phone. Ethan took it, hesitant, his thumb scrolling down. His face shifted. Confusion, realization, then something darker, colder. I didn't need to look. I knew what he'd find. Evelyn's words, her truth, spilling out in texts she never meant him to see. Margaret watched him, her silence a blade. Ethan's hand clenched around the phone, his breath hitching as he read. I caught fragments over his shoulder. Evelyn trashing Margaret as overbearing, scheming to train Ethan, laughing about his money and how easy it'd be to play him. "She's been planning this," he muttered, voice raw, "since day one." Margaret's lips curled, not quite a smile. "Your wife-to-be doesn't just dislike me, Ethan. She's been playing you like a pawn." He swayed slightly, the floor cracking beneath him. I said nothing. This wasn't my moment. It was his. But as his doubt hardened into anger, I felt it, a flicker of satisfaction, buried deep. The wedding spun on, but the lie holding it together was unraveling, thread by thread. The wedding marched on, but behind closed doors the foundation cracked. Ethan's hand still gripped Margaret's phone, his knuckles white, the screen's glow casting shadows across his face as we were ushered into a private lounge. The air thickened, heavy with a tension that made my skin itch, the kind that promised no one would leave this room unchanged. I followed the movement of bodies, Evelyn in the center, her white gown pristine but her composure fraying. Margaret near the entrance, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin, unreadable line. Ethan lingering by the bar, his untouched whiskey a silent witness. Lydia, of course, was already speaking, her voice a desperate thread trying to stitch the mess back together. "This is all just a misunderstanding," she said, offering a thin, forced smile. "Emotions are high, it's a wedding after all. Let's not let a little family tension ruin it." Margaret cut her off, her tone sharp as glass. "Family tension, Lydia? This isn't tension, this is a revelation." Her words landed like a slap, and Evelyn let out a mocking scoff, arms crossing over her designer gown, as if she could shield herself with silk and spite. "You've seriously dragged us in here for this?" she said, turning to Ethan, her voice dripping with sugar. "Baby, tell me you don't actually believe this nonsense." Ethan didn't answer, didn't even look at her. His silence hung heavier than any accusation, pressing down on Evelyn's carefully built world. Lydia reached for his arm, her tone softening now, a mother's plea. Ethan, sweetheart, you have to understand. Evelyn's been under so much stress. Planning a wedding is exhausting. People say things they don't mean. Margaret's lips curled, not quite a smile, more a baring of teeth. Funny because she seems to mean every word when she talked about controlling him. Evelyn's jaw tightened, her breath hitching, but before she could fire back, James spoke, and the entire room stilled. Lydia, stop. The words were quiet, a tired murmur, but they hit like a gunshot. My mother turned, blinking, as if shocked he'd dared interrupt. James wasn't a man who raised his voice, wasn't a man who intervened, but tonight something shifted. He straightened, his gaze heavy with a weight I couldn't place. You've protected Evelyn her entire life, he said, his voice rough, worn, and look what it's turned her into. Evelyn gasped, genuine shock flashing across her face, her perfect mask slipping. Dad, you're taking her side? She spat, gesturing vaguely toward me. James ignored her, turning to me instead, his eyes meeting mine for the first time in years, really meeting them. Harper has been right all along. The words rang in my ears, my breath catching, a sudden ache blooming in my chest. Lydia physically recoiled, her hands fluttering like she could wave this away, but James didn't budge. Ethan spoke then, before he even seemed to realize it, his voice raw, like he'd just woken up next to a stranger. Evelyn's a liar. She paled, her mouth opening then closing. Excuse me? She whispered, but he didn't repeat it. He didn't need to. I took a slow step forward, locking eyes with Lydia. I needed her to feel this, to understand the weight of it, the years piling up behind this moment. If you keep covering for her, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the storm inside, you will lose more than just me, Mom. Lydia faltered, her lips parting, no words coming out. Evelyn saw it, the crack in her shield, and panicked, her voice sharpening, desperation creeping in. You're all turning against me because of her? She snapped, pointing at me, her hand trembling. She's always been bitter, always hated me, and now you're going to believe her over your own daughter? Margaret exhaled slowly, lifting her glass to her lips before delivering the blow that would end it. We're turning against you because we finally see you for what you are. Evelyn flinched, a subtle shudder, her breath shuddering as her eyes darted from face to face. Ethan's cold stare, James's quiet resolve, Lydia's stunned silence. She'd always been in control, always the one pulling strings, until now. The air in the lounge turned suffocating, charged with something electric, something sharp. No one moved, no one spoke, as if any sudden motion might detonate the tension coiling around us. Evelyn stood rigid, her fingers clutching her gown so tightly the seams strained, her chest rising and falling in quick, uneven breaths. She was losing, and she knew it, but Evelyn didn't surrender. Not yet. Lydia gripped her arm, her voice low, urgent. Evelyn, stop! She hissed, but Evelyn couldn't, wouldn't. Across the room, Ethan's silence grew heavier, his disgust a palpable thing, and I felt it, a flicker of satisfaction sparking in my chest, buried deep but undeniable. She exhaled sharply, then turned to me, her eyes narrowed, her voice quiet but trembling beneath its control. You think you're so smart, don't you? I met her gaze, unflinching. I don't have to think, Evelyn, I know. Her lips curled, not a smile, something darker, more brittle. You've always been jealous of me, she said, the accusation so predictable it almost made me laugh. Almost. Instead, I tilted my head. Jealous of what? The fact that you have to lie and manipulate just to keep people in your orbit? I gestured to Ethan, to Margaret, to our parents, my voice calm but cutting. Look around, Evelyn. Your world's shrinking. Her jaw clenched, and then I went for it, the words I'd held back for years. You played your game well, I said, measured even. But you forgot one thing. I know who you really are. She flinched again, subtle but there, and Lydia sucked in a sharp breath. She knew I wasn't bluffing. I stepped closer, my voice softening, unwavering. I know about the money, the texts, the things you've said about Ethan, about his family. Ethan stiffened, his head snapping up, and Evelyn's face drained of color, her mask crumbling. Lydia turned to me, eyes wide, hands shaking. Harper, she whispered, pleading now. She's still your sister. You don't have to do this. For a split second, I hesitated. Not because I pitied Evelyn, but because Lydia had never looked at me like this. Like she needed me. Like she was afraid. But it passed, quick as it came, because if the roles were reversed, Evelyn wouldn't pause, wouldn't flinch. And she proved it, her voice cracking as she lunged forward, fury twisting her face. You don't get to do this, she screamed, her hand swinging toward me, fast and reckless. I didn't move, didn't cower. I didn't have to. Margaret stepped between us, calm as stone, and Evelyn collided with her, stumbling back, gasping. The sheer force of her own desperation sent her reeling, right into the ballroom entrance. The music halted, conversations died, every eye turning to the spectacle unfolding. Evelyn, the perfect bride, stood disheveled, breathless, her control gone. I didn't flinch. I didn't have to. She was losing, and everyone knew it. Evelyn, the golden child, stood there, disheveled, her rage twisting her into something small. The ballroom lights caught her trembling form as she stumbled through the entrance, her white gown crumpled, her perfectly curled hair slipping from its pins. The music had stopped mid-note, a jagged silence swallowing the room, and every guest turned, some with wide eyes, some whispering behind raised hands, all staring at the spectacle she'd become. She blinked, her breath hitching, realizing too late that this wasn't a private fight anymore. It was a public disaster, her carefully curated world unraveling thread by thread. I stood just behind Margaret, my pulse steady now, watching as Evelyn spun toward Ethan, her last lifeline in the chaos. You're my husband, she said, her voice high and thin, shaking with desperation. You have to stand by me. Ethan exhaled slowly, still near the bar, his exhaustion carved into the lines of his face. He didn't rush to her, didn't soften. I don't think I ever really knew you, he said, his words quiet but final, landing like a hammer on glass. Evelyn staggered, shaking her head violently. No, you don't mean that. You love me. But his eyes were empty. Not angry, not even disappointed, just done. Then, without a word, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small envelope. My breath caught. I knew what it was, and so did she. Her face drained of color, her hands trembling as she stared at it. What? What is that? She whispered, though the answer hung in the air, heavy and inevitable. Ethan didn't blink. Annulment papers. A collective gasp ripped through the guests. A wave of shock rolling across the room. Even I felt the weight of it, the finality, the death of the image she'd spent years building. Evelyn's lips parted, but no sound came out, her gaze darting from the envelope to Ethan's unflinching face. Margaret stepped forward, arms crossed, her voice cold as ice. You had this prepared, Evelyn stammered, and Margaret nodded, smooth and unapologetic. Of course he did. Then she delivered the killing blow, her tone sharp, precise. You were never going to be a part of this family. Evelyn staggered back, her chest heaving, but she wasn't finished. Not yet. She turned sharply to Lydia, her mother, her greatest defender, and softened her voice, lacing it with just the right amount of vulnerability. Mom, she pleaded, gripping Lydia's hand, pressing it to her chest like a scene from a bad play. You know this isn't true. You know they're trying to ruin me. Lydia hesitated, her lips parting, her eyes darting between us. Her two daughters, one she'd always shielded, one she'd always ignored. Evelyn, she started, her voice uncertain, and Evelyn seized it, leaning closer. Mom, you know me. I love Ethan. I'd never... But Ethan cut in, his voice cold, final, holding a stack of papers he'd pulled from his jacket, stapled at the top. Evelyn Morris filed an inquiry with a divorce attorney 1 month before the wedding, he read, his tone eerily calm, each word a deliberate cut. Another gasp swept the room, sharper this time, and my stomach dropped, not from shock, but from the sheer audacity of it. He didn't stop. You were planning to leave me, he said, slow, measured, the second you got access to my money. The papers trembled slightly in his hand, but his voice held firm. Evelyn paled, her mouth opening. That's not... Margaret let out a low, unimpressed laugh, tilting her head. Oh, sweetheart, don't even try. That's a legal document, the kind that doesn't lie. Evelyn's confidence shattered, her eyes wild, searching for an escape that wasn't there. Ethan took a step closer, his voice raw now, exhausted. Was anything ever real, Evelyn? Did you ever love me, or was I just another accessory for you to show off? She flinched, her lips quivering, but she had no answer, no one to back her up. Then, as if on instinct, she spun toward me, her voice rising, cracking. This is all your fault, she snapped, pointing, her hand shaking. You've always been jealous of me. It was the same tired line, but this time it didn't touch me. I didn't rise to it, didn't argue. I simply looked at her, calm, steady. No, Evelyn, this isn't my fault. This is who you've always been. She flinched again, harder, and I stepped forward, my voice soft but unshakable. You manipulate. You lie. You take and take. And when it falls apart, you blame everyone but yourself. Lydia gasped softly, her hand at her mouth as if hearing the truth for the first time. Evelyn shook her head, frantic. Mom, tell her she's wrong. But Lydia didn't move, didn't speak, just stared, her silence a blade sharper than any words. Evelyn stumbled back, realization dawning, her breath ragged. She looked around seeking someone, anyone, to take her side. But, for the first time, no one did. She laughed then, bitter, hollow. Not a victor's laugh, but a refusal to admit defeat. You all think you're better than me, she sneered, her voice unsteady. Just wait. None of you will be anything without me. No one reacted. No one rushed to her. She turned to me one last time, her eyes blazing, then fled, disappearing into the crowd, her reign over, her power gone. I walked out, the cold air sharp and cleansing, filling my lungs as I stepped through the heavy ballroom doors. The city lights stretched out beyond the courtyard, endless, alive with possibilities, and for the first time, I felt it. Freedom. A new beginning waited beyond those doors. Not loud or dramatic, just quiet, mine. A week had passed since that night, since I left them all standing there, speechless, unsure what to do without me playing my part. The fallout came fast. I glanced at my phone, scrolling through missed calls and unread texts, most from Lydia, some apologetic, some defensive. Lydia Morris didn't know how to lose, didn't know how to navigate a world where I wasn't chasing her approval. Evelyn, though? Silent. No posts, no captions, no illusions of perfection. She'd vanished, a fallen queen erased from the story. The call came that evening, my phone buzzing twice before I answered. Lydia's voice was hesitant, shaky. I know I've made mistakes, she said, as if it were that simple, as if words could mend decades. I said nothing, letting the silence stretch. She exhaled, unsteady. I don't know how to fix this. I closed my eyes, leaning back against my couch, the stillness of my apartment wrapping around me. There was nothing to fix. Some wounds don't heal, some shouldn't. But I didn't say that. I didn't give her the script she wanted, the steps to make it all vanish. She waited, hoping, then murmured, I just wanted you to know. before the line went dead. Later, a message pinged, an invitation to dinner, a quiet truce. For the first time, I considered saying no. Not out of anger, not resentment, but because I didn't need their validation anymore. I walked to the small bookshelf near my window, old photos framed there, moments I'd once ached to belong to. I picked one up, a Christmas shot, Evelyn front and center, Lydia's hand on her shoulder, me on the edge, an afterthought. I set it down, didn't pick it up again. Stepping to the window, I breathed in the night, the city sprawling before me, vast, unjudging. Choosing myself wasn't selfish, it was survival. Family isn't blood, I'd learned. It's respect, knowing your worth, refusing to beg for a seat at a table never meant for you. Have you ever walked away to protect your peace? Dropped everything to choose yourself when staying costs too much? Drop a one if this hit home, or tell me your story. Where are you watching from? I love hearing your experiences, the raw, real lessons we all carry. If you want more like this, hit subscribe. There's more to come, trust me. For now, I stood there, the past lingering but powerless, and I knew. Not all endings need closure, and that's okay.